For our breaking news of the day, looking live here outside the offices in D.C. of Special Counsel Jack Smith. You can see the media is there on a little bit of a stakeout. This is we learn more about the classified documents case against former President Trump, the indictment, and why Smith may have been appointed by Attorney General Merrick Garland in the first place. Again, next Tuesday, President Trump will appear in a federal court in Miami. There he will formally face, again, his second criminal indictment since he left office, and these are federal charges. But more on Jack Smith now. Let's get out to our national correspondent Logan Raddick with more on this. Logan?
Well, Bianca, Special Counsel Jack Smith, he was appointed, as you mentioned, by Merrick Garland, the Attorney General of the United States, in order to oversee this investigation into former President Trump. But as a federal prosecutor, he has a mixed record when it comes to prosecuting political figures. Now, Jack Smith, from 2010 to 2015, he led the Justice Department's Public Integrity Unit. That was during the presidency of Barack Obama. And during that time, former New York State Assembly Speaker Sheldon Silver, a Democrat, was indicted on corruption charges and later sent to prison. And also former Republican Congressman Rick Renzi was convicted of corruption, a verdict that was left in place by the Supreme Court, but he was pardoned, Renzi was, by then President Donald Trump. And Smith has had his share of botched prosecutions. His Public Integrity Division prosecuted the former Democratic vice presidential nominee, John Edwards, but a jury acquitted Edwards on one count and deadlocked on the others. And Smith also landed a public corruption conviction against former Virginia Governor Bob McDonnell, a Republican, but that was unanimously overturned by the Supreme Court. And shortly after Attorney General Garland appointed Jack Smith as a special counsel, I asked Bob McDonnell what he thought of that move. This is what he told me.
There appears to be, over the years, a lack of professional judgment in cases of the Public Integrity Section of DOJ when he was in charge, and I'll let the people decide from there.
And Jack Smith's Public Integrity Unit also played a key role in the Lois Lerner IRS scandal that happened in 2013. That was when the IRS was targeting conservative nonprofit groups. And Article 3 Project founder Mike Davis told me that he doesn't believe that charges should have even been brought against the former president in this case.
It is not a crime for a president to have his presidential records. Merrick Garland knows this. Jack Smith knows this. Joe Biden knows this. They're going to ignore the Presidential Records Act that controls here, and they're going to indict President Trump on a bogus theory of the Espionage Act. The Espionage Act does not apply to presidents or former presidents in their handling of presidential records.
And the Justice Department has yet to comment on the indictment against former President Donald Trump, but we are standing by for a news conference that is set to be held at 3 o'clock Eastern Time this afternoon. John, Bianca.
It's a short time from now. Logan Raddick live for us in Washington. Thanks, Logan.
All right, former President Trump is shaking up his legal team after the indictment. He announced that Florida-based attorney Todd Blanche and a firm to be named later will be now representing him moving forward. Jim Trusty and John Rowley, who met with Justice Department officials on Monday, they announced their resignations today. They released a joint statement which says, quote, "It has been an honor to have spent the last year defending him, and we know he will be vindicated in his battle against the Biden administration's partisan weaponization of the American justice system." Let's talk more about this and what it all means for the case. Welcoming in Harvard Law Professor Emeritus and Newsmax analyst Alan Dershowitz. His new book is called Get Trump, The Threat to Civil Liberties, Due Process, and Our Constitutional Rule of Law. Also with us, former Assistant Attorney General Jeffrey Clark. Gentlemen, great to have you both here.
Welcome.
So, Professor Dershowitz, first to you. Talk us through what's going on here with the shakeup of the legal team.
Well, it's not unexpected that when you know where the venue is, we now know the venue is in Florida, not in D.C. We now know who at least the initial judge is. You adapt. You call an audible and you make changes. Obviously, it's no secret there have been some tensions within the Trump defense team. This was a time, where changes could be made. If you wait too long after an indictment has been issued, it becomes a lot harder. This way, these lawyers don't have to enter an appearance at this point. And so it's not surprising that there'd be a change. But there are probably still some tensions within the team, and obviously it's not a secret that there have been difficulties. It's very hard to get a lawyer to defend Donald Trump. I can tell you why. because Project 65, this McCarthyite left-wing group, has been targeting anybody who defended lawyers. They filed a bar complaint against me for defending, basically, because I defended President Trump on the floor of the Senate. They're sending messages to lawyers all over the country. You defend Donald Trump at the risk to your bar.
Yeah.
And so there have been efforts to try to get lawyers off the case. And a number of lawyers have told me they would like to have defended President Trump, but they can't do it. Their family won't let them. Their law firm won't let them. This McCarthyism has gone deeply into the system, and it's being used by lawyers, by judges, and by everybody else.
We'll see what Jack Smith's case really involves. There are some reports right now that the federal indictment has been unsealed. So obviously that will lay out what he feels is a case to have brought this 7-count indictment. But Jeffrey, the other breaking detail, besides what we've been discussing with Professor Dershowitz about the legal team departure, is also that Trump is saying his former aide, Walt Nualta, has also been indicted. And he put a post on Truth Social. This is a picture of him. He says they are trying to destroy his life like the lives of so many others, hoping he will say many bad things about him. And there are reports that this is about surveillance footage that shows Nualta and Mar-a-Lago maintenance workers moving boxes of the classified documents. Now, we know Jack Smith, by all reports, is tenacious and has been looking, and I guess everyone at Mar-a-Lago has been interviewed there. So I'm sure you're not surprised to hear another aide may have been indicted, especially when we look at a conspiracy charge. But what else are you looking for as this federal indictment is unsealed?
So thanks for having me on. Let me just make one comment carrying over from Professor Dershowitz, who I'm honored to be on with, about the 65 project. It is an evil project. When they were kicked off, they specifically said that they were going to try to shame lawyers and destroy them in their local communities. So that's the kind of tactics, underhanded tactics that we're seeing being used. On Walt Nualta, I did see what was happening with him, and there, what I would commend your viewers to look at as soon as they can is a bombshell story by Hugo Lowell from The Guardian, which says that Nualta's lawyer, Stanley Woodward, got a call from the Justice Department and was told to come over. They wouldn't tell him what it was about, but once they got him in the conference room, they told him that, look, we think Nualta's lying, and we don't think you're really a Trump guy, so we think you're going to do the right thing. And they also mentioned that he happened to have applied to President Biden to get a federal judgeship in D.C. on the Superior Court. So they're leaning on him to try to basically tell his client to, turn on Trump. I mean, it's the worst, most Stalinist intimidation tactic. It's completely improper for lawyers to be doing that. And there's been a complaint filed at the court about the conduct of the Justice Department in terms of trying to strong-arm Nualta and his lawyer Woodward.
I was going to ask you for some way to characterize how you would describe what's going on in terms of this prosecutorial misconduct of other people. Stalinistic is one way. The question I have for you, Jeffrey, is are they going to get away with it?
Well, look, I think it's an acid test of how much of the republic we have left. I'm a student of Soviet communism, of the rise of Bolshevism, and of the Stalinist show trials. And it seems to me like, especially with the January 6th defendants in D.C., they've set up something as close to that process as they can try to pull off inside the United States. And obviously, we still have judges who are faithful to the rule of law, and I think they're pushing back on some of these things. In particular, Judge Katz has pushed back on the major statute they were using against the January 6th defendants. So we'll see. I'm hopeful that Florida and the 11th Circuit will push back. But look, if this is something that the Justice Department under Biden and under Merrick Garland and under Jack Smith are allowed to get away with, I think that the republic, maybe it doesn't even survive at some level, but it certainly would suffer a grievous blow.
Yeah.
Look, I have a lot of experience with this. I spent a lot of the 1970s in the Soviet Union defending pro bono dissidents. And as soon as we tried to get a Russian lawyer to be on our side, the Russian lawyer would either be investigated, indicted, or deported or disbarred. And if the Justice Department even made a sound against a lawyer saying, we don't want you to defend Donald Trump, that would violate his Sixth Amendment rights to a degree that the indictment might have to be thrown out. So if the Justice Department is not careful, if it in any way conspires with this disgusting, despicable Project 65, this McCarthyite tactic, then the Justice Department will be held responsible for violating the Sixth Amendment rights. And there's no such thing as harmless error when it comes to the Sixth Amendment. If you deprive a criminal defendant of his effective assistance of counsel, the case is over.
Well, we'll see where it all goes from here. The indictment has been unsealed. We're getting some new details on that. Stay tuned to Newsmax for more. And we want to thank Professor Dershowitz and Jeffrey Clark for giving us their insight on this today. Thank you, gentlemen.
Thank you both.
Thank you.
Yeah, the AP reporting that 37 felony counts related to retaining classified information, obstructing justice, and false statements are included in that indictment that was just unsealed.
Yes, the felony counts related to retaining classified documents, obstructing justice, false statements.